Encanto is Disney Animation's 60th feature film, and now follows up films like Moana, Frozen 2, and Raya and the Last Dragon as films that don't pull source material from fairy tales, but rather deriving their stories from cultural and historical references from a certain place in the world. For example, while Moana's story was pulled from the mythology of Maui and other Polynesian gods,
you're welcome.
What? No. I didn't.
There's also the historical relevance of the long pause, a 1,000-year gap of time when Polynesian people didn't sail the ocean. That really happened. Encanto brings to life Colombia's cultural ideas of family and community, while also playing on the literary and art movement of magical realism that became so popular in 1900s Latin America, especially with great authors like Colombia's Gabriel Garcia Marquez. While minorly playing off real-life events of Colombia's 1,000-day civil war, Encanto leans into magical elements, which help tell a story about generational misunderstandings, the need to belong, to feel special, and to find your place in life. My name's Josh Taylor, this is Modern Mouse, and today I want to talk about Disney's Encanto, how its story is based off of Colombian and South American culture, and why its lead character of Mirabel is more important than you actually think. Encanto is the story of the Madrigal family and their home in Colombia. Abuela, or grandmother Alma, is the matriarch of the family. Fleeing their original home due to civil war, her husband, and 3 children march through the jungle of Colombia until her husband is killed. At this point, the candle she's been trudging through the jungle becomes a magical candle. The candle blasts away the soldiers and creates a home, the casita, and gave her children superhero-like magical powers. 50 years later, those children now have their own children, and Alma is the elder grandmother who continues to run the family and essentially run the town that sprung up around the Madrigal home. Our lead protagonist, Mirabel, is the only one of Abuela's family members without magical powers, and has grown up feeling lesser than because of it. When the house cracks and begins to fall apart, she makes it her mission to be the one to save the casita. It's a really beautiful story about finding your place and belonging, and it stays true to Latin family dynamics. It gives enough background to justify all of the magical elements that exist within the story, and Lin-Manuel Miranda gives us a bunch of excellent songs that vary up different Latin styles like cumbia or mambuco or the tango. I saw this film in the theaters because I thought its colors would blow me away, and it did, but it also gave me this brand new appreciation and understanding for Colombia, and it made me want to research more. The Madrigal family is big, and at first, it can be a bit of a task to figure out how each is related to Mirabel. But the excitement of this movie comes from seeing how each magical power is used in both positive and negative ways. Mirabel's quest to find the cause of her casita's problems actually becomes a quest to figure out her family's problems, and how they extend back to before she was ever born. I grew up as an only child, but a lot of the themes in this film still resonated with me. Like how your elders are always right, or that your voice doesn't ever feel heard by being the youngest generation in a family, or my own personal desires to feel special and find a place in this world. All of those lessons are in this movie. Anybody can pull from that, but I think that there's some deeper ideas within this film I'd like to explore. If you look further into Encanto, you start to see the threads to why this movie was made and how it represents Colombia, its culture, and its people. The 1,000-day war depicted within the film was a civil war between liberal and conservative parties over Colombia's economic and political power and where it was headed. Conservative leadership at that time tanked the value of money, and Colombia's main export of coffee became a victim as farmers started losing money and their businesses were no longer profitable. Taking place at the turn of the 20th century, the Conservative Party took a hands-off approach to governing. And because of that, at least 60,000 people were killed and many more were displaced. Families opted to find homes in other countries or to settle outside of the main cities and countrysides. And you could make the argument that Colombia has never really fully recovered, despite how many different styles of governing they've gone through since then. The coffee industry bounced back, and in Encanto, we see its influence on one of the film's youngest characters.
What are your powers? Just tell us what everyone can do!
And that's why coffee's for grown-ups.
But Colombia, throughout the last few generations, has been more known for continued violence in the country, as well as another major export: drugs. As an outsider, my only concept of what Colombia is or was is what was shown to me through media. Outside of Sofia Vergara on Modern Family, the thing I associate most with Colombia is gang violence and cocaine. Not a really great look for a country that would probably enjoy a bump in its economy through tourism. There actually has been a shift in Colombia's economic stance, and the country's crime and violence has taken a turn for the better, but outside perception has stayed roughly the same thanks to shows like Netflix's Narcos. I think that Encanto can and hopefully will change outsiders' perception of Colombia, as there's a great amount of biodiversity, human diversity, history, and culture there. And a major part of South American and Colombian culture is its contributions in literature during the 20th century. That literature actually derives from the art movement known as magic realism or magical realism that took place in Europe and migrated to Latin America at the beginning of the 1900s. This name is silly and an oxymoron, but describes these images perfectly. Unlike full-fledged fantasy that would take us to a different world, magical realism feels almost dreamlike. It takes everyday situations, places, and objects and adds fantastical elements. This art can sometimes play a trick on your brain when your eyes wander to the canvas, and you automatically understand what you're looking at, but as your eyes pan to a different direction, you might reconsider what you'd seen before. What was once familiar and normal now becomes magical and enchanting. Latin America's literary boom saw a wide success of authors like Jorge Luis Borges or Alejo Carpentier, taking the art movement and translating it into fictional work. Of the Latin writers that created a magical realism as a literary movement, it was Colombia's Gabriel Garcia Marquez who would have the most success. His 1967 novel, 100 Years of Solitude, is a story about a multi-generational family whose patriarch founded a town that became a utopia for his family after he and his wife migrated from home. It's not an exact parallel of Encanto, but there's definitely hints of the book being an inspiration. While Encanto still follows Disney's traditional storytelling formula with musicals, it's also not difficult to see how they were inspired to create a story around Colombia's culture and magical realism. The people outside of the Madrigal family are rather normal, and the family itself still deals with problems and emotions that we're all too familiar with, like jealousy, hatred, fear, and love. The trick to magical realism is that there's no need to explain the magical elements. For the characters of the story, these elements aren't really magical at all. For the Madrigal family, having superpowers and rooms within the casita that open up to giant jungles is just what happens. If you had a dream that you were going to meet up with some friends and go to a local diner, and to get to the diner you rode a unicorn, you wouldn't really question the unicorn. You just accept it as part of your dream. That's the fun of this type of storytelling. But another part of magical realism is its political and social commentaries, because it's usually set within contemporary times. There is a lesson within Marquez's 100 Years of Solitude that I think applies to Encanto. In his novel, this family tries to build a utopia, but history is inescapable and bound to repeat itself. In Encanto, that same idea can apply. Abuela Alma is trying to keep her family and her town in a utopia. The one family member that didn't fit that utopia desired by Alma, her son Bruno, was cast away due to his superpower of seeing the future. Despite his sometimes gloomy futures, he was never wrong in his predictions and ultimately could have helped in keeping the Madrigal family and their town safe had he not become an outcast. Mirabel fits into the story because she sees the need for Bruno and for herself within the family, as they are both outcasts with purpose. Something that seems so obvious in hindsight is that Mirabel's lack of a gifted special power puts her in a similar place as her grandmother, who currently runs the family but is getting older. She also lacks a special ability. If you look at the entire family, you see that all of them use a singular color within their outfits with slight variations. But Mirabel's dress encompasses all of the colors because she is a representative of the entire family and will be the person who carries the family forward once her grandmother is gone. Where Encanto differs from Marquez's novel is it shows that history doesn't have to repeat itself. We can take time to realize how the world around us has changed or what needs to change in order to accommodate everyone. Abuela Alma's way of governing is just by doing the same old thing and having a laissez-faire attitude about it. But it's that same hands-off attitude that brought Colombia into the 1,000-Day War in the first place. Mirabel's gift isn't some magical superpower, but to be a great leader for her family and town, as she allows that town to pivot for future generations. Encanto has so many different takeaways for whomever's watching, but I think Disney Animation's choice to create a Colombian story based on its history and culture is something that adds further depth. It's the kind of story that gets me excited to crack open some history books or listen to some podcasts. I enjoy a classic retelling of a fairy tale like anybody else, but Disney's venture for the last few years into telling stories about cultures and history has really got me excited to expand my knowledge about the world and the people within it. Encanto is a film about what Colombia is, and it asks its audience to engulf themselves in its history and culture. To believe that the fantastical isn't just for worlds of fantasy, but that we can take the world we live in and make it fantastic, if we just choose to do so. If you enjoyed this video, give this video a big like, a big thumbs up, share it with some friends, and if you'd like to watch something else that's similar to this, you can check out my Frozen 2 analysis and its real world story as well, right here. And if you've not subscribed to the channel, please do so. I talk about everything under the Disney umbrella on this channel, deeper analysis, thoughts, reviews, etc. And in the meantime, my friends, thank you for watching, and as always, keep moving forward.